And here's one, I'll throw this out. Tell me one single person watching this who would refuse the offer from a company to have some free goods in exchange for their great opinion or endorsement or use of, and I'm not saying promotion because I'm not using them words, it's what do you think to this? Yeah, it's great, I use this, it's great. But
whether you're going on the river, whether you're going on a commercial, feeding is everything, isn't it? And you always say it, don't you? No matter what hook you got on the end, if you get your feeding right, your float will go under.
They drag your rod in.
Yeah.
They pull your float under, that's what they do.
Yeah.
He knows how to feed. Oh, and it's like, that's second nature to him because he thinks about the fishing.
Yes.
But then when he's got that sorted out, he'll then start tweaking his tackle.
Oh God, he's a nightmare for it, isn't he?
So today's show is devoted to the humble fire. And I'd like to raise a toast with my stunning cup, to this great servant of ours that's kept us warm through the winter months, Joe.
Kept us toasty, hasn't it?
It has, but I'm afraid, I believe this will be the last one of this season. Not the last mixing bowl, that is, but the last fire. Because the temperature is warming up as we stride into episode 7 of the mixing bowl. You're joined again by my good self, Mick Viles, and the handsome, delectable Joe Carus, who is roasting in his hoodie in front of this beautiful fire. But we said we'd have a fire, and we did.
Put a fishing t-shirt on, didn't I? And regretted it.
Absolutely. We've had a few suggestions from the last mixing bowl as to what will replace the facade of this beautiful creature that keeps us warm through the winter. And maybe on the next episode we'll see the result of that, won't we? Yeah, absolutely.
The big reveal.
So once again, thanks very much for all your comments, and we will try and build them in to future shows. And but of course the subject matter will change as the season changes, yeah. Joe. So we're
feeling really positive at the moment because I think fishing is about we're just going to have like this explosion of amazing fishing everywhere.
I love spring.
Spring's the best time of year, isn't it? All the birds are at it, aren't they? All the flowers are coming
Everything's
up.
happening. Things are moving.
The hedges are starting to go green. Everything's just great, isn't it?
Do you get that kind of feel good, for that lift in your spirit? It's a bit of a spring in your step.
Yeah, definitely. It's real, that, isn't it? Especially after a pretty grey winter, let's be honest. And then now it's like, can't wait to get going. Can't wait to put on fresh elastics in my pole. I've got my rigs tied, ready to go.
Brilliant. And I think that's probably an important sort of point, is to say that it is that time of year when I think we're now the very end of March, start of April, and I believe that a lot of people who don't fish through the winter, this is when they start fishing. Easter's a massive turning point.
Yes. Shops get busy, don't they?
Yeah. I think everybody's cut the grass for the first time. They've done all the chores. They've kept her indoors happy, and then the fishing tackle comes out. So
check your nets because the mice will have been in.
Yeah, well, we do breed mice at Nufish, and we let them loose in everybody's gardens to make sure that they eat through the net, so we can keep the flow of our great products moving forward. But where on earth do those mice come from? Who knows where they come from?
I get swarms of them. Swarms of them.
Well, you will live in the countryside.
Yeah.
I'm in the urban sprawl. We don't get them. We just get big mice by that with tails as long as we arm. So for the seasoned anglers amongst you, you'll be getting your kit back out, and some of you will have been prepping through the winter. Hopefully you've been looking at, sort of renewing your elastics and tying up some rigs on some wonderful new line that might be kicking around.
Might be.
Anytime soon. And prepping yourself. But we had a chap who asked us, as probably as more of a newcomer, or more to the point, somebody who'd not really match fished, and his question, Joe, was, what methods, if any, do I need to perfect, and what preparation do I need to sort of set upon to start match fishing? Match fishing.
What a question. That's such a broad thing, isn't it? Because I think the first thing, without knowing, or the first thing the chap needs to identify, or lady, because it could be a lady angler, of course, is what style of fishing takes their fancy. Because ultimately it is several very different subject matter, isn't it? Almost very different areas of expertise. Are you wanting to look at commercial fishing? Are you wanting to look at river fishing? Or are you wanting to look at feeder fishing? I think they're probably the three that we could probably look at, aren't they?
Yeah, that's an interesting
point.
Say? Breaking them up. No, without a doubt.
Because I think that they're the three categories that I think define anglers, aren't they? I know there's canals and things like that, but I think if we look at them three, And I think that'll hopefully give us some guidance for the person asking.
Great point. Because although there's some common products and common items of equipment that you're probably going to need for both, obviously like a seat box, it's very different in the respect that poles versus rods and reels.
Yeah.
And I think this question came off the back of, is fishing too expensive?
Yeah.
And lots of people talking about how expensive it is, which I still don't particularly agree, because there's second hand, there's lesser level stuff. So depending on what you want to do, it means depends on and where you're going to go fishing. Because if you're starting match fishing, and we talked about when we started match fishing, we gently sort of egged our way in. We didn't just go day one, full setup, here I am, all the gear, no idea.
Which is very tempting when you see all these YouTube videos and we've got all the kit laid out beautifully and it's all there and we're ramming it down people's throats almost, aren't we? Like, you've got to have this. But the reality is you can do it not on the cheap, but you can do it in a much more considered manner, can't you? With lesser amounts of kit.
Without doubt. So let's walk through it then. So you're going to go match fishing on rivers.
Yep.
And we're near the Trent.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. What kit would you need? Let's talk about rods.
Rods, yeah. You're definitely going to want a nice float rod, aren't you? Preferably 13 foot as a minimum, I'd say.
Yep.
If you're only going to have one, I'd maybe try and find a 14, perhaps.
Good point.
Would that be
fair to
say?
A nice compromise? Yeah.
Nice compromise. You're going to want a feeder rod.
Yep.
12 to 13 foot, would you say?
I think it's a great
medium to heavy feeder, I'd say. If
Yep.
you're going to the Trent, something that you can chuck a bit of weight with. Because you are obviously with the flow, you're going to need 2 to 3 ounce feeders.
Yep.
Maybe even heavier in some occasions. And then you're probably looking at a pole, aren't you? I think those 3 items, I think they're going to get you going on the river, aren't they?
If you were going to start off match fishing on a river, though, do you think you would need a pole? Do you think you could leave that out?
I do think you probably do need a pole these days. But that's so hard saying it because it all depends again on the river you're fishing, doesn't it? Because
of course it does.
Some like the Avon at Barford, for instance, it's a lot of rod and line fishing, or even the Trent, there's a lot of rod and line fishing. But likewise, there's some slower, deeper rivers where you probably do need a pole. So it probably
if you were fishing the River Soar,
it's a very pole-dominated venue.
No point taking a stick float there, is there?
No,
really?
It's not even going to go through, is it?
No, because it's too slow. If you're going to go on the Trent,
I think
some slow bits
let's use the Trent as the example then. I think that'll give us a nice little datum line. As you
love a datum line.
Told me that one. So I think a 14-foot float rod would be a great buy. You can get amazing new ones. You can get some even more amazing second-hand ones, can't you?
Unbelievable.
There's some great rods out there. I've been looking myself. A 12 to 13 foot feeder rod. Look for that medium heavy sort of labelling, would you say?
Yeah, I would say medium to heavy. You want something that
because you're not looking for that progressive.
No, because you're not playing carp at your feet. It's more about casting a weight and then bite indication. And ordinarily, you can actually play. They don't pull back as hard, do they? So you can play them on the tip rather than having to play them on the throw action of the rod. Yeah. Dead simple. And you're going to need a selection of feeders. Yeah. A few open-end feeders, a few maggot feeders, a few floats, a couple of wagglers, a couple of stick floats. It's not massive amounts of kit, is it? And I think that's what we're going to find with this conversation, that are we all misleading people into saying, look at all this kit we've got? And when we do our videos, I purposely try and set up as little amount of kit as possible because I want to prove that you don't, watercraft is, if you could buy that in a tin, now that would be the thing that you buy to start match fishing.
We did a video last week on the ooze and I walked to my swim because I used the rest box because obviously a lot of the river's hard to get to, isn't it? So I purposely travelled light and I took a 1 gram bulk float, I took a lollipop float, like a 2 grammer, and I took a 3 grammer, and that was all I took with me. And I had everything I needed for that day's fishing. 3 rigs. And you think about that, you see the pros, don't you, with all these rig trays. It's not realistic, is it? And I know it's nice to be able to cater for every eventuality, but there has to be some level of let's be sensible
and find the medium.
Yeah.
Which is,
you're going to want a running through float if you are pole fishing, something with a round body up to sort of a couple of grams, would you say?
I would say 2 gram would be enough for most places.
And then
when it gets past that, chuck a feeder in.
Yeah, and a flat float's probably a good thing to own, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's going to be some perch on the inside of the river.
Yeah.
whichever river you fish, that's probably going to be a thing. And a nice flat float is probably a good way to catch them.
No, I agree. And what about then if you were going feeder fishing? And when you defined it as feeder fishing, we're talking about still waters, we're talking about places like Southfield Reservoir
Yep.
or Tamar Reservoir,
Yeah,
or
natural feeder fishing.
natural Ferry Meadows,
Yep.
those sorts of venues, Carmel Dams. You're not going to need tons of kit for that either, are you?
You're not. A good selection. I think it's probably the weight down feeders. If you just let's go for the feeders first. Those weight down feeders now are pretty much all that I see you ever use.
Yeah.
Or-
They're easier to cast.
When I
aren't
go
they?
around the feeder masters taking the pictures and whatnot, everyone's got a base loaded feeder, aren't they? So
Yeah.
I'd say get some of them and
They're
and
straightforward,
a window
yeah.
feeder.
Yeah, they're
those
great.
two. I think those,
Yeah, because you can control your bait that way, can't you?
I think
It's
those
dead
two. If you
simple.
had them in your box, you'd be catching plenty of fish, wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
you would. Rods, you need short, medium, and a long, maybe, because it's feeder fishing. So maybe could you get away with two? You could
Two,
get away
I
with
think
two
a
rods,
medium
couldn't you?
and a long, if
An
I'm
11
being-
foot and a 12 foot.
Yeah, I think
something
that would be
like
a great
that.
starting point. I think you could
You can
go
cast
to
a
a
long
lot
way
of places
with
with that.
12 foot, and you can cast quite short. And there's plenty of kit on the market. Braid or nylon. I would start off with nylon if I were a starter.
I think if you bought our detection, not wanting to be pluggy, but I think
Good point,
I
yeah.
think that is a good go-between, isn't it? Like,
Absolutely.
you would use that and you would have great results. So I think that would be a great thing to put in your reels.
Yeah, and you see, but everything else is common product, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose the only thing you're going to need is a pair of waders for still waters, feeder fishing, and river
rivers,
fishing.
yeah.
But you're definitely not going to need them on a commercial, are you? Because we've got these beautiful,
Pegs.
well presented fisheries, beautiful pegs, nice and dry, nice platform, party car there.
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course
Pub after.
yeah,
Yeah.
dead easy. And of course, I think this is where the problems start, because people start. The key point is 16 metre pole. Got to have a 16 metre pole.
I
What
I
what's
can't
your
remember
answer to
winning
that?
a match over the past 5 years, but I've maybe won 1 or 2 matches with 16 metres of pole in my hand. I think you win matches with 5 metres of pole or less generally. Is the truth for the matter?
That's interesting.
Once you go from spring through to summer, your match, apart from a bit of shallow fishing, perhaps most of your fishing is done at short range these days. So I think having a pole, but I wouldn't be so like obsessed with having a long pole. Like save yourself a few
13 metre pole.
A 30-metre pole would be great because you could get to islands and things like that. But I think most of your fishing these days is done short anyway. 5 metres or less, brilliant.
We could even talk about margin poles, couldn't we, and say that they were
if money was tight.
sufficient.
I think if you can push onto a pole of 30 metres, I think it is a benefit.
Yeah, you've got the advantage.
It is a benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah, if money's tight, if you can get a good 6, 7, 8 metre margin pole with a few top kits,
And would you say a 10-foot feeder rod would
a
cover
10-foot feeder rod is great.
a
for
lot of commercial
range.
fisheries in
Loads.
this country?
It's loads. I rarely have a rod longer than that in my hand when I'm commercial fishing. So.
So tackle's pretty straightforward. You don't have to be too severe. Its beauty's in the eye of the beholder. More importantly, and I think was part of the chap's question, was that what skills you need to learn to be able to start match fishing. And this is probably going to chuck a fire blanket over the whole thing. Start where you're comfortable.
Yep.
Pick yourself a target, work towards that target, achieve it, move on to the next target. Slowly but surely. We had the advantage of starting as juniors, and you feel your feet, don't you? And you just keep lifting. And it could take you a couple of years to build up to where you need to be. Don't try and bite off more than you can chew. Really important. And I think
I can relate to this quite a lot because I've done 3 different aspects of fishing outside of my match fishing background recently: river fishing for chub and barbel and bass fishing in the sea. And it's literally been me, as this chap is, starting from nothing, apart from obviously my knowledge of fishing, but I've had to learn from scratch. And I started off with my chub fishing on an easy venue where I could get some bites and learn the basics. Then I've progressed to something a little bit more challenging. And then now I'm on the final level, if you like, fishing but it's taken me 5 years to get to that. And I think that's really important. That's a great point what you said there. Try to work your way up. Identify what you want to do. Maybe it is catching big carp. Maybe it is catching F1s. Find somewhere where you're going to get plenty of bites, because you only learn by catching fish, don't you?
without a doubt.
And find them venues, which is they're plentiful, and then work your way up and set yourself little goals. I think that's really important.
No, it is. We met a young lad called H Fishing, didn't we?
Yeah.
Down at the Big One Show a couple of years ago. And I saw one of his videos yesterday. It popped up on YouTube, and
Great to see him still fishing.
Gone to his local venue, and he's mastered it, and he's cracked it, and he knows how to catch them.
Yeah.
And then he'll move on to bigger prizes. As in, I don't mean prizes in what you're thinking, cash prizes or trophy. I mean, he'll go, that's my goal. That's the prize that I want to achieve, which is tackling a bit bigger lake or a bigger pond or a bigger fish or a river or a canal, and eke your way in slowly, because fishing is not, you can't buy it in a packet.
No.
Doesn't come in a ready-made kit, and that goes for the tackle, that goes for the knowledge, that goes for the watercraft.
Yep. It happens over a period of time, doesn't it? Which may not be the answer you're looking for, but
So,
it is a slowly
baby steps.
baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's massive.
I've done a little bit of commercial fishing, but it is a little bit, and I've dabbled and I've come out of it. Don't mind going on feeder events on commercials, because it's a lot simpler, and there is, I suppose, the answer within that statement, that because I ain't got to think about a pellet waggler, I ain't got to think about margin rigs, because I ain't got to think about shallow rigs, and slapping and tapping and overshotting and
Pace fishing and
all, and so a van full of kit. So I can choose a commercial method type venue or
that
match,
suits.
and that allows me to take a smaller bite of the apple, and I can chew it, and I'm not going to choke on it and overpower myself, because I think it's very easy with this mass. When you look at the landscape of fishing, if you tried to take all that in one go, you'd just overwhelm yourself, wouldn't you?
oh god, it's I overwhelm myself when I think about it. You know, go to a new venue, go to Makins quite a bit, and I'm thinking of going there over the next few weeks. And you've got one of the lakes. You've got method feeder, bomb, waggler on the bottom, margin, long pole, mugging, shallow fishing. All of a sudden, I've got 10, 15 things to consider. You can't do all that, can you?
So avoid that as a starting point.
Yeah, don't do it.
Pick somewhere simple.
That's relatively simple, that you can get your feet wet, learn the basics. I know it's hard to say that, but you'll quickly become, from watching other people, because I think that's important. And I don't mean just sitting and watching. I mean, actually, in your match, keep an eye on people, see what they're doing.
Great
Look
advice.
at what bait they're using. Look at where they're fishing. Because, like I said, most people are fishing a short pole these days anyway. And
That's where the fish want to be.
And you'll quickly learn. And if you can master 5 metres and the margins as a starting point for your summer commercial fishing, you're going to catch loads of fish and have a great time doing it. So I think that's really...
So here's a question then, Joe, which flies in the face of everything we try to do, because we make a living from selling fishing tackle. That's what we do for a living.
Yep.
Tackle or bait? What is in relation to this chap's question, what do I need to do to start off match fishing and get good at it? Would you say forget all the tackle, concentrate on feeding?
Yeah, but that's very easy. If you haven't got any tackle, you can't do either of it, can you? So it's very you do need a starting point.
Good point.
You?
Yeah.
So you do need to obviously invest at the start, but learning feeding is the biggest part of match fishing. Any fishing is not successful without feeding, other than dobbing in winter, but we'll ignore that. It's not real fishing, that. But whether you're going on the river, whether you're going on a commercial, feeding is everything, in it. And you always say it, don't you? No matter what hook you got on the end, if you get your feeding right, your float will go under.
They drag your rod in.
Yeah.
They pull your float under. That's what they do.
Yeah.
When you've got it spot on.
Yeah.
Do you think people are distracted
Very much so.
because there's not enough sort of stuff out there that just says to people, forget all this around, the surrounding noise, the white noise,
All about the feeding.
and just have a look at this. And when we've done our fishing videos, even though we probably don't emphasise it enough, that this is what it's about. This is the key element, you know. This is how I feed my pace line, or I don't feed my pace line, because you can't catch a fish until it takes your bait.
Yeah.
It doesn't take your bait unless you get it into a feeding pattern. You can't get into a feeding pattern if you feed the wrong way. So
we've got this beautiful thing we call a float, haven't we, or a quiver tip, which gives you instant feedback, doesn't it? And learning to read those two things is the biggest edge in fishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Based on, if you feed some bait around your float and you get a bite and you hook a fish clean in the mouth, you're on the right track, aren't you? But as soon as
Good
you
point, yeah.
miss a bite, foul hook a fish, maybe lose a fish,
indications,
something's
liners,
wrong, isn't it? And it's learning to act on that information you're getting. A good example was last summer. I was fishing a place called Barbary Banks, hard pellet fishing, the most simple fishing you can get. I've got a tub of 6mm pellets on my side tray. That is it. I don't take anything else with me because I was confusing myself with loads of different options. So I decided to strip it all back, one bait on my side tray, and all I had to do was concentrate on the feeding, and it was a game changer. And this is how small the margins can be. And I'd hate to like complicate it, but it's not. I found that feeding 3 6mm pellets would get me a clean bite. But if I upped it to say 8 or 10, which doesn't look like a lot, but you put it in your pot, you'd foul hook it or lose it. And it happened time and time again. And learning to read what was happening and refine it by keeping things simple was the answer. And I ended up winning 2 on the trot by feeding just 3 pellets at a time. And I think that is fishing in a nutshell, isn't it? Like that feeding thing.
Without a doubt.
Massive.
Without a doubt. And I think, and listening to you there and thinking about this whole subject of this chat, and we're to blame as much as anybody else of confusing fishing with far too much information.
Yeah.
When ultimately, if you could blank out everything around you and just go, right, ultimately, this is how we caught these fish, because I introduced a hardball or, and we've done some great content, haven't we, where we've talked about how we fed things, and I've just wet my ball down a little bit, or I've squeezed my feeder a bit, or I've completely stopped putting worms in, or I've piled a load of casters in. And that is where everything changes. Not because your 16-metre pole is stiffer than his 16-metre pole, because
you've got a better float than he's got on, or
it's
not that, is it?
No, the key to catching fish. Now, once you've mastered the feeding bit, which is an important part to say, then the fact that you can hook more bites because you've got less stretch in your line, or your elastic's going to last a bit longer and therefore it's not going to let you down, then that's where the subtle differences come. And because I think a lot of match anglers, including us two, feel like we've got a bit of a handle on feeding, we then talk about the tackle and the effects it has on it, because then that's the nth degree.
That's looking like for probably the 1% that probably aren't even there, in all honesty.
No.
We're looking for little things that probably not, because it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously
we've had fish and tackle.
We've had the pleasure of spending some time with some fantastic world-class anglers, and the great Alan Scottorn, 5 times world champion. I've spent a lot of time with him, and
I know what you're going to say.
He knows how to feed. And it's like, that's second nature to him, because he thinks about the fishing.
Yes.
But then when he's got that sorted out, he'll then start tweaking his tackle.
Oh God, he's a nightmare for it, isn't he?
And it's just, I just like cut a quarter of an inch off bottom of that float, or I replace that tip and put a slightly quarter-inch longer one on, and that's because he's mastered the feeding, and he's then trying to make the final nth degree tweak.
Yeah.
But I think it's more attractive and it's more interesting for people to grab those facts and ignore the feeding bit, because of course you just go, well, he just potted some ground bait in, away he went. No, he didn't. Did you work out how he squeezed it? Did you realise that the ratio of casters to ground bait was a finite number?
He didn't put it until 10 to 3 when the fish are feeding, which is a common one on commercials.
Exactly. And so the feeding element, I've found, is the be-all and end-all.
Maybe that's something we need to maybe that's probably a series of videos on its own, feeding masterclass, but rather than it literally just going through a session and all you're discussing is feeding and the changes, because sometimes it's really simple, isn't it? But other days it's a blooming nightmare.
Without a doubt.
And actually walking you through a session and that being the only thing you're really worried about, maybe that's something that viewers would like.
And I think the message is probably not coming across clear, because depending on who's sending this information out there and presenting this information, that video might not be necessarily about the feeding. It might be about the venue, or it might be about a new piece of tackle, or it might be about their adventure. And ultimately, feeding is king, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing. So
not flashy tackle.
A long-winded way of getting around to answering the original question.
Hell of a question.
Great question.
Like a 3-hour answer that you could easily do on that.
But it's endless.
It is endless.
It's endless.
It is endless.
Keep it simple. That goes without saying. don't try and tackle too big a job in one go. Break it down to smaller segments, but put more effort into your feeding than you do into your tackle.
I think and going to places where you get lots of chances, so places with lots of fish, really helps you get your foot under the table, doesn't it? It helps you. You can't learn fishing without catching fish. And if you go to places that are rock hard, yeah, you'll get to grips with it. But I think you've got to catch fish, haven't you, to learn.
Great question. Hope that's answered it for you. We've not stoked the fire up, Joe, because I'm going to let that die away slowly as like a final crescendo to its end of its winter life as we head into summer. And lots of things are happening. The weather's changing, the fire's disappearing. And then since our last episode of the Mixing Bowl, we've announced obviously the start of a match concept that we talked about in a previous episode. I think it was episode 5, where the rumblings of the Nufish All England Championships, which more importantly was about a match that had no entry fees, so it's free to fish, no cost, but there was no money to fish for, only pride and a trophy, and the title, which I think was born out of some sort of a lot of comments, especially on the Mixing Bowl, about when we talked about the cost of fishing, and people then brought up the massive debate, which is it's actually bigger than the North-South divide, which you hear on the TV and in the Houses of Parliament, which is the sponsored versus the non-sponsored anglers, and the divide between the two, and the mammoth difference that people feel that has an effect on match fishing. What's your thoughts on that?
It's really really interesting, because I don't know what people's points of view are regarding sponsored anglers, because the truth is there's not that many sponsored anglers who are in the position where they can just go fishing all the time. There's very few in there. And even like some of the very best, I know like your Lee Kerrys and stuff have got a lovely way of life to get to go fishing a lot. They've got to do a lot of work as well.
More than people realise.
I know filming is fishing, but it's not like when you actually come on a filming shoot, you're not really fishing, are you? It's not like you're learning loads of stuff.
No, you're filming.
It's quite stop-start. It's not real, is it? Let's be brutally
It's not a day's fishing.
It's not a day's fishing. So,
no.
But I wouldn't change it. Don't get me wrong. So I think sponsored anglers don't fish as much as people probably think. I don't think that the time thing is people are, he gets to give him work and go fishing. I don't think that's necessarily true. And I also think the lads who are at that, not the Steve Ringer paid to go fishing level, the other guys who go fishing a lot, they're on all the festivals, I think they sacrifice an awful lot, as in work, because a lot of them will be self-employed. They probably give up a lot of work to go on these events, probably give up a lot of their family time, like is a big thing. I think there's a lot of they give up a lot to do it.
Do you think that's the chicken and the egg thing? Where does it start?
Yeah.
Because when I go on a match and I see the lad next to me who's, we're going to call it sponsored, and we'll expand on that. Usually he's in a van, and when he opens his van to get his rods out, there's a load of plastering equipment or some copper tubing or some timber, or because ultimately they're self-employed, and a lot of them have gone self-employed to give themselves the opportunity to have a Wednesday off so they can fish more, and then because they fish more, ultimately they get better at fishing and they win a few things, and people want to support that with tackle endorsement and sponsorship. I think there's a lot of myths about sponsorship, because it's always been around, you know. It's been around a long time, and in fact, here's a statement for you: there's less sponsored anglers today than there was 30 years ago.
Big statement that.
I've just made it.
Big statement.
I've made the statement.
Tell me.
Because team sponsorships.
Yep.
So
I get it. As soon as you mentioned that, I get it.
What we're on 2025, 1995, Division 1 National, Octopus Barnsley Blacks. We fished it. There were 85 teams of 12 anglers, 1,085 anglers. Every single team on there was sponsored in some way, shape or form. Keynet Central. I'm going to try and remember a few. You know, you've got ABC bait this. You'd got Daiwa Cleveland Angling Centre. You'd got Octopus Saints, Shakespeare Super Team.
Track us colder, people.
You could go on and on and on and on and on. In fact, you can write them all down. Tell us all the teams that you remember as being sponsored. And so everybody on the match was sponsored in some way, shape or form, whether that was to clothing, whether that was to bait, Van den Eynd Essex, Census Leicester. So there were bait sponsors, there were tackle sponsors, and there were hundreds of them because there were teams. And when they sponsored a team, there'd be 12, 14, 16, 18.
Members,
a good squad would have 20 people in it.
Yeah.
And they were all sponsored, but everybody was in some way, shape or form. Rotherham Laurel Raiders was my first ever team. They were sponsored by Laurel from something like 1981 after they won the first national.
Technique Nidman.
Brilliant. We could go on all day, couldn't we? And that didn't affect fishing, did it? Because there were more people fishing. There were 85 teams of 12 in the national. There were 2nd division, 3rd division, 4th division, 5th division. Within a couple of years, there were a 6th division. So actually, that was growing when there were more sponsorships being thrown around than there currently is today with all these sponsored anglers. I think the difference is it's more prominent.
I was about to say the awareness of it now, because every time there's someone sponsored, it's pleased to announce, isn't it? And we're all looking at Facebook every day, like a drug, aren't we? Like looking at it, and you see it every day, like, blooming it, everyone's sponsored, but they're not, are they?
and tackle brands didn't have the range of tackle that they had then. So if it were Tricast, they'd have a Tricast jacket on, Tricast rods and Tricast pole. They wouldn't have had a Tricast seat box or a Tricast keep net. They might have had Tricast luggage, but wouldn't have been made. That'd have been made especially or printed up with their name on it. But now, if it's a Matrix sponsorship who seem to sponsor, a lot of people, then they've got seat box, they've got pole, they've got rollers, they've got nets, they've got landing nets, side trays, you name it, floats, hooks, line, shot, the whole thing. And so, is it just that it's more prominent, more in your face than it particularly was?
Yeah, I think it probably is.
Was before.
Probably is.
Because it's a massive debate that's got loads of negativity around it.
A lot of it, like, people be like, oh, you shouldn't be sponsored, because it'd be like a tackle firm will sponsor a guy who's got no wins, say. But he would have been in a team back then, so he would have had a sponsorship, because he would have been a team level angler, wouldn't he? Some roundabout way. Yeah. A rugby team, or you know what I mean? He would be, or Leamington Spa team, for example, who would have had a deal, and he would have probably got the same deal for his team.
Of course he would.
So, but now
and tackle shops were thriving 25 years ago, fishing were thriving 25 years ago, and there were more sponsored anglers then than what there is today.
And I also think there's this thing about people, like, if they're putting the work in and they're promoting the brands in the right way or promoting fishing in the right way, why shouldn't they be sponsored? Like, I firmly believe that someone who's doing a good job of fishing maybe should get a bit of a reward. And
well, where is the tackle brand supposed to advertise its wares?
Yeah, without the right people.
Because surely the best way to see your product being endorsed, used and displayed is in the hands of somebody who's good at using it.
Yep.
Do you think there's a lot of jealousy involved, or?
Yeah, I think that's probably
and
fair
to say.
And that's probably the same in any sport, isn't it? I'd say a lot of jealousy, people's circumstances. People do sacrifice a lot to be able to do it, don't they? And people don't like the sacrificing part of it, or can't see it. Like, I know you've probably given up loads to pursue your England dream.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course you do.
And I know
change your life.
I'm friendly with a lot of people in that situation who've given up a hell of a lot. Good businesses, good opportunities to pursue that, and
some have given up good jobs and careers, haven't they, to pursue being a better angler. Yeah. And the fact that, and I think it's a misconception that angler is relying on their sponsorship to have a successful fishing
They'd be successful anyway, wouldn't they?
It's not the case, is it?
It's not the sponsorship that's giving them, catching them loads of fish, is it?
No, it's the fact that they're great anglers, and they're great anglers because they put more effort in. Yeah. They then have tackle companies saying, would you wear our cap? Because they're putting loads of effort in, not because of they prefer him to prefer you. It's like, where do we want to fly our banner? And it's banner waving. Surely you want to stick your name as a tackle brand on the back of somebody that's, more importantly as well, going to represent you in the right manner and conduct himself in a way that reflects the ethos and you know, the way that the business.
Because we've got a
wants.
small selection of sponsored angles, haven't we? People that we
Yeah,
really like, really trust. We know represent us in a great way. We recently take on Osset, Nufish Osset,
Yeah.
which is a great team of anglers, very successful, and we get a lot from that. But I wouldn't say we've got a massive team of sponsored anglers. Is it something we would? I always remember you years ago actually used to be quite downbeat on sponsored anglers. I remember.
Yeah.
But now I think you even see the value of them's massive, isn't it?
Well,
from our side of things,
it's the carrier for the gospel.
Yeah.
So if you want to preach a gospel, then you have to get your word out there.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to get your word out there is through your associates or your disciples, let's call them.
Yeah.
But I think the word sponsorships are the wrong term. I think they're associates of brands,
yeah.
and I think they spread the word and they deliver the message that you're trying to give. And there are, of course, let's not paint it any other way, they're a walking billboard and it's an exchange. But is that not the way in life that things go around? I mean, let me just put this out to the people. These people who moan about sponsored anglers are probably walking into a Nike shop and buying a Nike hat or a pair of Nike trainers with their emblem emblazoned on the side. They're actually buying it.
Yeah, they're paying for that opportunity.
Paying for the opportunity to wear a brand's item.
Yeah.
Well, is that not how the world works? How would you get to see the kit if you were like, well, I watched him and he was brilliant and he actually won matches at Appadori, really good, and he had that pole and he made it look dead easy. And that's what people do, they buy by association.
Absolutely.
And ultimately I think the amount of people who are endorsing products or associates of brands is very, very small compared to what it used to be.
And the perception of it as well, I think.
And yeah, it's been getting blown out of proportion, isn't it?
Because it's alright for him, he gets free bait. There ain't many shops giving out free bait, let me tell you.
No,
None. Because they can't afford to do it.
No, it's not there.
So that myth's, I don't know, a few bait companies probably give a bit of free bait away. But what is the reality of it, Mick? How many people are actually getting paid to go fishing, do you think, in match fishing?
Well, it easily fit onto both of them.
Less than 10, you'd say?
Yeah.
Genuinely get a wage to go fishing?
Or to get away, I can't on one hand.
One hand.
Yeah.
To actually say, I don't have to do anything on the side to live.
To pay rent or
Yeah.
a mortgage, less than that.
And I know one of them very well, and I see him every week in Chiltern Bait, buying all his bait and stuff. So he's still buying it all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. And here's one. I'll throw this out. Tell me one single person watching this who would refuse the offer from a company to have some free goods in exchange for their great opinion or endorsement or use of. And I'm not saying promotion because I'm not using them words. It's what do you think to this? Yeah, it's great. I use this. It's great. And you know, we've dished a few freebies out here and there.
Yeah.
And they're always welcomed. And people
Everyone ever
cannot
turns
wait.
it down, do they?
No, and more importantly, they cannot wait to tell somebody that they've had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got this, I got that, I got a free so and so. And I was outside a guy the other week who'd got a nice shiny new pole, and I saw that it was a Maver pole, and on his dashboard he had a Maver hat and a Maver beanie hat, and he actually had a Maver something else. And I said, "Oh, are you something to do with Maver these days?" And he went, "No." He said, "I bought a pole from a shop, and I left him a review on their website, and they sent him a box of goodies."
Very nice, isn't it?
And he went, "That don't happen very often, does it?" And this is a genuine guy who's been to a tackle shop,
Yeah.
bought a pole, and then he's wrote a review on their website, and they've sent him some goodies. So all of a sudden, he's then endorsing their product because he's got this cap on, and he's got this, bag that they give him, and etc. It's in a bunch of floats, and then all of a sudden he's got a bit of their elastic because they sent him that in his goodie bag, and he's got
enjoy using it. So
and he caught a load of fish because listen, there's a lot of good products out there.
It's very hard to find a bad one, I'd say.
Exactly. So he's using that, and all of a sudden he's and is that sponsorship? Yeah. So it's an interesting.
So just to flip this on its head, then, if someone out here is he's desperate to get a sponsorship, he's desperate to progress his fishing. He sees that as his holy grail. What are you looking for as a owner of a brand for the next Steve Ringer or the next sponsored guy that we're gonna put on our YouTube channel and promote?
That's an interesting point. This conversation's all gone the other way, hasn't it?
Because there will be people out here watching who think, actually...
Well, I've used the word associate.
That's my goal.
and I've used the word endorser, and disciple's a bit of a big word. But ultimately, if you have a core value within your brand, which ours is about trying to make fishing easier, our strapline is engineered to make a difference. So every product we try and make sure that it suits the job, or it's got a specific, it's been designed to cure a problem or something. I've no doubt when we run out of ideas, we'll have to do ordinary stuff like most other brands do. But at the moment, we're trying to exactly. So you want somebody to carry that through and believe in that themselves, you know. And if you're thinking that you want to be sponsored, my first thoughts would be, and this is going to sound really odd coming from me, I'd say go to work, put an extra shift in,
buy the kit,
go to shop, buy the kit that you want, and then just go fishing. But ultimately, because we haven't got Dangling Times, doesn't really have the effect that it used to have, and Angler's Mail don't have the effect that it has. We have this YouTube where we promote our products. For us to produce a great product that we think has made a difference to fishing, and for you to get to know that it exists, the chances are we're going to need somebody to wave it around. And all I would say is that don't worry, they'll come to you because they'll recognise the values in you that suit them, and it's a great association. You'll know when you're doing it right because people will go, here, stick that cap on, here, do you need a new bag? Here. And the next thing you know, why don't you be part of what we're doing? And as you said, we've got a small team of people who fit into our
looking for,
beliefs and our core values. And then the same with, obviously, we've got Nufish Saucy, and we also have got a great team, Nufish Selby, who are obviously up in our neck of the woods. But the way that they go about their fishing, they're professional, they put loads of effort in.
Brand ambassadors, aren't they?
Brand ambassadors is a great word. That's another word, ambassador. So sponsorship, I think, is an awful term.
I think it's good. You know what, just to jump in there, you've not mentioned match wins once. You've not mentioned results.
No, you don't have to, do you?
So that's not a big concern for you. You don't have to be a 5 times world champion.
No,
you don't have to.
No, because you could have one of the most successful anglers in the world who doesn't then. Is not might not be a great ambassador for a brand because he might not be user friendly. He might not want to share his secrets. Might not be very good on camera. So you've got, because ultimately it's all part of a, how do we get the viewer to see our product that we believe we've made in a certain way that's going to help you to go fishing. We can't rely on just a YouTube video or a Facebook post. It's, this guy is a trustworthy guy. We believe in him. He believes in us.
It's a mutual.
You come together like a partnership, and then he will go. His friends trust him because he's a great guy, and he's gone. Well, I'm actually using it, and he's actually using it, and that's not because he's had it cheap or for free.
He's using it
because trust me. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've worked for tackle companies. I've been in the angling industry for 25 years, and I've not done too bad at fishing, and people are quite happy to send me a bit of tackle, but I only use the tackle that I think is right. And if you go to any sponsored angler and have a proper look, you'll see that he might have some odd bits and bobs that aren't from his main sponsor, and that's because he only uses what is right. So if he couldn't use the tackle, then surely he wouldn't, so the guy's a good guy, he's straight. And if he is using the tackle from his sponsor and he's still winning, then what we're actually saying is, just have a think about that. It's quite obvious that there's nothing wrong with tackle, is there? And even the fact that he might have had it for note, as they say in Yorkshire, and he's still beating everybody. It's
not the reason he's beating them.
It's not the reason. So just have a think about the fact that he might be good at it, or he's an extended employee of the company to get it out there. So don't let it become your master. Very important.
Very important. It's not that shouldn't be the driver of why you're going fishing, should it? The driver should be you're enjoying your fishing. You want to do well in your fishing.
Yeah, it will come
because the young lads, I think, they're desperate to get sponsored now, aren't they? And I probably was back then, but now I see it different, and I think like the longer you can hold out,
Yeah,
you hold out.
You'll get the phone call if you deserve one. Don't worry. I've seen it happen 1,000 times in beyond what we do. Perfect. Yeah, great question, great answer, really. Great subject, Joe.
Great subject, yeah.
It's fantastic, and I think
Look,
the fire's going out. I think we've seen that to the end of its life. So look forward to seeing what comes out.
Quite symbolic, that
Next time. Yeah, the ashes. Maybe we could have a phoenix. There you go. It could be a picture of a phoenix. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Be a big picture of a product that we might be launching.
Yeah. Well, I think we like to leave this as a friendly, non-industrial chat. Yeah, of course we do. But once again, thanks for joining us. Much appreciated. We do listen to everything that you tell us, and we do try and include it back in this chat. I will repeat myself again and say this can only happen if we obviously get the feedback from you that you're watching these videos, and part of that is if you do subscribe. That helps us to read what's happening and get a feel for how many people are watching it. So if you could just do us a little favour and press the subscribe button, that would be absolutely fantastic. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode.